Okay, let's dive into the story of a man born to keep a tradition alive.
So this story, it doesn't start with words. It starts with music, a sound that shaped a life. It's 1968 in Brikama, the Gambia. A child is born, and they name him Tata Dindin.
Music was not entertainment, it was identity. I mean, wow. For the family at the very heart of our story, music wasn't just some background noise. No way. It was the very fabric of their lives. It was the answer to the most fundamental question you can ask. Who are you?
To really get this, we've got to travel back in time. Let's go to Brikama in the Gambia, all the way back to 1968, because that's the year a child named Tata Dindin was born. And with his birth, a profound legacy was set to continue.
Can you even imagine? He was born into a world where melody came before words. He was literally learning the shape and feel of music, its contours, before he could even speak. That was just his reality.
And yeah, as you've probably guessed, this was not your ordinary family. Not by a long shot. They were more like custodians, guardians of a sacred musical tradition. And the weight of that responsibility, it was immense, right from the very beginning.
And that responsibility was rooted in this incredible lineage of masters. You know, it's the kind of family history that is both an amazing gift and, let's be real, a pretty profound burden too.
Okay, so first up, you have his father, Laminijo Barte. In the world of Gambian music, just saying that name commanded immediate and immense respect.
See, he wasn't just a musician. He was a celebrated Kora maestro, a man whose fingers, they said, spoke history. Think about that. Every single note he played was a direct line, a connection to a story, a person, a moment from the past.
But the lineage went even deeper. His grandfather was Alhaji Bai K. Kante, a truly legendary figure whose influence cast an even longer shadow.
He wasn't just great, he was considered one of the greatest griots the Gambia had ever known. To put that in perspective, that's the cultural equivalent of being born into a family of living, breathing national treasures. Okay, so I've been using that word griot. And to really understand this legacy, we have to know what it means. It is so much more than just a musician. A griot is a community's memory made flesh. They're the historian, the storyteller, the poet, all rolled into one. They are the living libraries of West African oral tradition. It's an absolutely crucial role.
And the griot's #1 tool for channeling all that history was the Kora. So you see, this wasn't just an instrument, it was a living archive, a vessel for holding the memories of an entire people.
In Tata Dindin's home, the Kora wasn't kept in a case. No, it was just there, leaned up against the wall like a respected elder, always present. Stories didn't come from books, they traveled through its 21 strings. History itself literally lived inside its melody.
So you have to ask yourself, what does an environment like that do to a young boy growing up in it? Well, he carried the weight of this melody, learning to listen not just to the notes, but to the very soul of his people, woven deep into the sound.
So in this home, just saturated with sound and history, the young Tata was quiet. He spent his early years just absorbing it all, listening with an intensity that went way beyond just hearing things.
He would just watch them, his father, his grandfather, all the other masters. And he understood this one distinction that was absolutely critical. They weren't just performing music, they were channeling memory right through their fingertips. And that was the profound lesson he learned, the central truth he understood before he could even properly hold a Kora himself. In its purest form, music doesn't just make sound, it carries the soul of a people.
Which leaves us with this final big question to chew on. For someone like Tata Dindin, born into this incredible lineage, what does it really mean to inherit not just an instrument or a talent, but the soul of a nation?
So, let's pick up the story of the griot, Tata. But now we find him in a world that's starting to sound, well, completely different. As Tata got older, the very air around him, which used to be thick with tradition, just began to change. This is all about the quiet weight of a great inheritance and what happens when the modern world starts to turn up the volume. I mean, think about that question. What does a culture actually sound like when it begins to disappear? It's not some loud explosion, right? It's more like a slow, quiet change. It's a note that doesn't get played anymore, a story that just doesn't get told. Let's really dig into what that sounded like for him.
Okay, so first you have to picture the scene. This change wasn't happening in a bubble. The entire sonic landscape of Gambian society was basically being redrawn right before his eyes.
And this slide, wow, it just lays it out so clearly. On the left, you've got the then, people coming together, the patient art of storytelling. And then on the right, you've got the now, the singular sound of a radio blasting in these faster rhythms from a world away that demanded a totally different kind of attention. And this is the direct result. It wasn't just that people's tastes were changing, it was a shift in what was considered important. As all these new sounds got louder, the keepers of history, the elders, they just found it harder and harder to be heard. Their voices, once the absolute center of the community, were being pushed to the side. So as you can imagine, this big shift in society had a huge and deeply personal impact on the griot tradition. For someone like Tata, it was becoming a real crisis. In those quiet moments, away from all the new noise, Tata really thought about this. He could see it with this painful clarity. The tradition he was a part of, this lineage he thought was unbreakable, was starting to show cracks. It was a slow fade, something most people might not even notice. But to a master like him, it was like a screaming alarm bell. And the problem was really coming from two different directions. First, the source of the knowledge itself was just disappearing. The great masters of the Kora, the people who knew the oldest songs by heart, they were passing away. And with them, entire volumes of unwritten history were just vanishing.
And here's the other side of the coin. It wasn't just that the teachers were gone. The students didn't even speak the language of the music anymore. Sure, they might hear the notes, they might even learn to play them, but they were missing the context, the history, the actual soul behind the sound.
And that right there became the central fear. When the stories are forgotten, when the cultural weight is gone, what do you have left? Is it just a bunch of pretty sounds? For a griot, whose entire life's purpose is to carry meaning through music, that was a terrifying thought. So, seeing this all happen, watching his traditions start to fade away, Tata felt this profound sense of duty. This wasn't about his career anymore, or his reputation. This was about the survival of his culture's identity. In a world that's all about individual fame and getting applause, Tata's motivation was something ancient and selfless. He wasn't a performer looking for an audience. He was a guardian protecting a treasure. And that is a weight far, far heavier than fame. And this quote from him, it just says everything. Listen to the words he uses. He says, it's not just the sound that's at risk, it's our sensibility. What does that mean? It's a whole culture's way of seeing the world, of feeling, of understanding. If you lose the sound, he's saying, you lose the very character of who you are as a people. So all this responsibility he was feeling, it pushed him towards this really powerful, almost revolutionary idea about what his instrument truly was, and what his role as a griot really meant. This helps us completely reframe what he was doing. Yeah, he was still practicing relentlessly, but the why had changed. This wasn't about getting better for a performance anymore. This was an act of cultural preservation. Every single practice session was a fight to keep a voice from disappearing into silence. And at this point, everything just clicked for him. He had this realization that would change everything, transforming the Kora from just a musical tool into something so much more profound. It was a library. Just think about that for a second. Not a building with shelves and dusty books, but a living, breathing archive made of wood and string and sound. Every song was a book. Every melody was a chapter. And he, the griot, he was the librarian, tasked with protecting this entire collection for the future. And that's really what we're left with, isn't it? Tata's story is about the Kora, sure, but the lesson is for all of us. It forces us to look around and ask, what are the libraries in our own cultures? And maybe more importantly, are we listening closely enough to hear the stories before they just fade away?
Have you ever wondered if music could be two things at once? Like, what if it could be a time capsule for a really ancient culture, but also a universal language that absolutely everyone on the planet could understand? Well, today we're diving into the amazing philosophy of a musician who did exactly that, the one and only Tata Dindin.
So, it all starts with this idea. Just picture a musician who is so deeply plugged into his roots. You know, a tradition that goes back for centuries, that every single note he plays feels like it's echoing through history. And yet, at the same time, that very same music could float right over cultural boundaries and just connect. It needed zero translation. So how on earth did one artist manage to build a bridge between those two worlds?
The artist we're talking about is Tata Dindin, one of the Gambia's most celebrated Kora players. Now, the Kora, it's this incredible 21-string instrument, kind of like a harp and a lute had a baby, and it has this beautiful, almost magical sound. In Tata Dindin's hands, that instrument became his passport to the rest of the world. I mean, just think about that journey for a second. From a small town steeped in tradition and cultural history, all the way to huge concert halls across Africa and Europe. His music, which was born in one specific place, somehow managed to find a home everywhere. But here's where it gets interesting. As he became more and more famous, Tata Dindin started saying something on these big international stages, something that, at first, might make you kind of scratch your head. It really makes you stop and think.
So you have to wonder, right? What was this really important message he wanted to share with the whole world? What was so crucial that he said it over and over and over again?
And there it is. I am a musician before I am a griot. Now, to most of us, that might not sound like a huge deal. But in his culture, that was an incredibly powerful, maybe even controversial thing to say. So what in the world did he mean by that?
Okay, to really get what he was saying, we have to understand he wasn't turning his back on his heritage. Not at all. He was actually reframing it really cleverly for a global audience.
You see, the word griot is a really, really big deal. A griot is basically a living library. They're the historians, the storytellers, the keepers of a culture's entire history, passed down from generation to generation. It's a sacred responsibility.
So, and this is the absolute key. When he said that, he wasn't rejecting his legacy. He was opening a door. He was building a bridge. It was all about connection.
And this is where you can see his genius at work. By calling himself a griot, he's honoring that ancient lineage, he's speaking to his culture, but by putting musician first, he was speaking to everybody. He was using a universal language. One identity was about tradition, the other was a tool for connecting with all of humanity. Just brilliant. And this musician identity, wasn't just a word. It was an active, creative role. He wasn't just a performer playing old songs. No way. He was a composer, an arranger, a band leader. He was taking those traditional sounds and shaping them into something new. Something that could be true to its roots, but also speak to a modern, global audience.
And all of this, it leads us to the very heart of his philosophy. For Tata Dindin, music wasn't just some background noise or simple entertainment. It was a powerful tool. A tool for humanity. He saw this incredible three-part purpose for his music. First, it was to bring people together, to achieve unity. Second, it was to help different cultures understand each other better. And finally, and this might be the most important part, it was to make sure his own culture survived. Not by locking it away in a museum, but by sharing it with the world so it could stay alive and breathe and grow.
So all of this leaves us with a pretty big question for our own lives, doesn't it? Tata Dindin used his music as a bridge to connect with everyone. In a world that can feel so divided sometimes, what's the universal language that we can use to connect with each other today?
a mission, and a sound. A sound so deeply woven into the fabric of a culture that if it went silent, well, it would be like erasing generations of history. This is the story of Tata Dindin and his quest to save the Kora tradition. And this idea, right here, it just sets the stage perfectly. The biggest threat to a tradition isn't always some big, dramatic attack. Often it's just the slow, quiet process of being forgotten. It's neglect.
So when a culture is on the edge, at risk of just being ignored, who steps up? Who decides to be the one to listen, to really hear what's about to be lost? Well, that question leads us right to our guy.
You see, the threat here wasn't a war or some kind of official ban. Nope, it was something way more subtle. The world was seriously at risk of losing this incredibly unique musical heritage, not to conflict, but to simple silence. It was quite literally an endangered sound.
And what exactly was this sound? It was the voice of the Gambian griot tradition. We're talking about a whole lineage of storytellers, historians, and musicians who carried the entire oral history of their people. To lose that voice, it's like losing the entire library of a nation.
But, this isn't a story about loss. It's actually a story about preservation. And any great preservation effort, well, it needs a guardian. And that's where Tata Dindin comes in.
He saw what was happening. He totally understood the risk of neglect, and he made a very conscious choice. He decided he was going to become a beacon, a point of light and guidance for this tradition, making sure its flame wouldn't just flicker out. Now, for anyone who might not know, it's really important to get what a griot actually is, because as you can see, they are so much more than just musicians. These are living, breathing archives. They are the keepers of history, of family trees, of poetry, all of it passed down from one generation to the next.
So how in the world does one person stop an entire tradition from just fading away? Well, Tata Dindin's whole approach was to become a vital link, a connection between the past and the future. He literally became a bridge. And this breaks down his strategy perfectly. It's kind of like a three-part mission. First, he honors the old masters. He respects the deep, deep roots of the music. Second, he actively guides the young people, passing on everything he knows. And third, and this is so crucial, he translates that tradition for the modern world, making sure it stays relevant and alive.
And that's it, right there. That's the absolute essence of his work. A bridge doesn't just sit there. Its whole purpose is to connect two places that would otherwise be separate. That's Tata Dindin, making sure the wisdom of the ancestors actually reaches the ears of the next generation. I absolutely love this quote. Think about the difference, right? Shouting, that's aggressive. It demands your attention. But reminding, that's something else entirely. It gently awakens a memory inside you. His music isn't about being the loudest. It's about carrying the weight of history with this incredibly profound, gentle sound.
So this all brings us to the legacy of his work. What's the ultimate impact of a life spent being a guardian, being a bridge? It's making sure that the voices from the past can still speak to us, right here in the present.
So yeah, while he is a master Kora player, no question about it, that label, musician, it just doesn't feel big enough to capture everything he is, He's something more. He's a guardian, someone who protects something precious, not for himself, but for everyone. It's a role that's all about responsibility and pure dedication.
And just think about that kind of bravery for a second. This isn't about fighting some physical enemy. It's the quiet courage it takes to stand against a huge tide of indifference, to give your entire life to something that other people might just overlook. That is truly profound. And we'll end on this thought. Every single note he plays is an act of defiance against being forgotten. Each vibration of the Kora strings is like a conversation happening across time. Thanks to Tata Dindin, that conversation, the voice of the ancestors, it continues. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Who are the guardians of the traditions we care about today?